The rain battered the window of our cramped Seattle apartment, a relentless drumbeat that drowned out the world. I was hunched over my desk, drowning in law school notes, when I heard it, a soft, deliberate strum from across the room. My roommate, Elias, was playing that song again, the one that made my chest ache for reasons I couldn't name. We'd been roommates for 6 months, thrown together by a Craigslist ad and a shared desperation for cheap rent. Elias Rivera, 25, was a graphic designer with a laugh that filled rooms and a habit of leaving paint-splattered mugs on every surface. I'm Julian Carter, also 25, a law student with a knack for overthinking and a life plan mapped out to the minute. On paper, we were opposites, his chaotic energy clashing with my need for order, but somehow we worked. Until that night. It was late, past midnight, and I was wrestling with a torts textbook when Elias's guitar strings hummed again. "You ever gonna take a break, Jules?" he called, his voice low, teasing. I glanced over, ready to snap something about deadlines, but he was sprawled on the couch, his dark curls catching the lamplight, his fingers coaxing a melody that felt like it was written for me. I froze. His eyes met mine, and for a split second, the room wasn't just an apartment, it was a confession. "Keep it down, man," I muttered, turning back to my notes, heart pounding. Elias just grinned, unbothered, and switched to a softer tune. I tried to focus, but every note seemed to pull at something I'd buried deep. I'd known I was gay since high school, but I'd locked that part of me away, convinced it didn't fit with the life I'd planned. Top law firm, corner office, no distractions. Elias, though, he was a walking distraction, all warmth and reckless charm, and I hated how much I noticed. He stopped playing abruptly, the silence louder than the rain. "You're gonna burn out, you know," he said, setting the guitar aside. I shrugged, pretending to read. Then he stood, crossed the room, and dropped a mug of chamomile tea on my desk. "Made this for you. Drink it." His fingers brushed mine as he pulled back, and I swear the air crackled. I mumbled a thanks, avoiding his gaze, but he lingered, like he was waiting for something I wasn't ready to give. That was the first crack in my carefully built walls. Over the next few weeks, Elias's small gestures piled up. Notes on the fridge, playlists left playing when he knew I was stressed. The way he'd lean too close when we watched movies on our thrift store couch. I told myself it was nothing, just his personality, but my pulse betrayed me every time he smiled. I started noticing things I shouldn't. How his hands moved when he sketched. How his voice softened when he talked about his dreams of opening an art studio. I was falling and it terrified me. One night, I came home late from the library, exhausted and frayed. Elias was in the kitchen, humming, stirring something that smelled like his mom's adobo recipe. "Rough day?" he asked, not looking up. I nodded, dropping my bag. He slid a plate toward me, and we ate in silence, the kind that felt too comfortable, too dangerous. After, he grabbed his sketchbook and started drawing. His brow furrowed in concentration. I watched him, unable to look away, and when he caught me staring, he didn't tease. He just held my gaze, and I felt exposed, like he could see every secret I'd ever kept. "Wanna see?" he asked, tilting the sketchbook. I leaned in, expecting one of his usual cityscapes. Instead, it was me. Head bent over my books, hair falling into my eyes, a quiet intensity in my expression. "You look like that when you study," he said softly. "Like you're carrying the world." My throat tightened. No one had ever seen me like that, not even myself. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I stood, muttered something about sleep, and fled to my room, heart racing. The next morning, I found a note taped to my laptop. "You're more than your plans, Jules." I stared at it, torn between crumpling it and framing it. Elias was chipping away at me, and I wasn't sure how much longer I could pretend I didn't feel it too. Life in the apartment became a tightrope. I buried myself in case law, but Elias was everywhere. His laugh, his music, his stupidly perfect smile. I started avoiding him, taking longer routes to class, staying late at the law library. But every time I came home, he was there, like a question I couldn't answer. One evening, I walked in to find him on the couch, sketching again, his shirt smeared with charcoal. "You're avoiding me," he said, not looking up. I froze, caught. "I'm just busy," I lied, but my voice cracked. He set the sketchbook down, stood, and stepped closer, his eyes searching mine. "Jules, if I did something, just tell me." His voice was raw, and I realized he thought he'd messed up. The guilt hit me like a wave. I wanted to tell him it wasn't him. It was me, my fear, my need to control everything. But instead, I shook my head and walked away, the distance between us growing heavier. Days blurred into weeks, and the tension built like a storm. I was losing sleep, my grades slipping, my carefully planned life unraveling. Elias stopped playing his guitar, and the apartment felt emptier for it. I hated myself for pushing him away, but I didn't know how to stop. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Friday, and Seattle was drowning in a late autumn downpour. I was at my desk, pretending to study, when Elias burst through the door, soaked to the bone. "Come with me," he said, his voice urgent. I frowned, confused, but something in his eyes, wild, desperate, made me grab my coat. He led me to the roof, where the city sprawled beneath a sky heavy with rain. The wind whipped around us, and I shouted over it, "What the hell, Elias?" He turned, rain streaming down his face, and grabbed my hand. "I can't keep pretending," he said, his voice breaking. "I see you, Julian. I see how hard you fight to keep it all together. But you don't have to. Not with me." My heart stopped. He stepped closer, his hand still gripping mine, and I felt the world tilt. "I'm in love with you," he said, and before I could process it, he kissed me. The rain, the city, the fear, it all vanished. His lips were warm, urgent, and for the first time, I let myself feel everything I'd locked away. I kissed him back, my hands finding his face, and it was like coming up for air after years underwater. When we pulled apart, breathless, he laughed. A shaky, beautiful sound. "You're gonna ruin my life, aren't you?" I whispered, and he grinned, pulling me close again. That night shifted something permanent. We didn't talk about it right away, we didn't need to. The apartment felt different now, alive with possibility. Elias started playing his guitar again, and I let myself listen, really listen. We'd cook together, our shoulders brushing, and every touch felt like a promise. But I was still scared. Not of him, but of what loving him meant for the life I'd planned. Law school was brutal, and I'd built my future on stability, not the reckless hope Elias carried like a second skin. One evening, we were sprawled on the couch, his head on my shoulder, when he asked, "What happens after you graduate?" Big firm, fancy suits, no time for me. His tone was light, but the question wasn't. I didn't have an answer. My plan had always been clear. Pass the bar, join a top firm, prove myself. But now, with Elias, I wanted more, something messier, truer. I kissed his forehead and said, "I'm figuring it out." It wasn't enough, but it was honest. The world outside our apartment wasn't as kind. Seattle was progressive, but not everyone was. We'd get looks sometimes, holding hands on the street, and I'd feel Elias tense beside me. He never said it, but I knew he'd faced worse growing up in a small town. One night, at a bar with friends, a guy made a snide comment about roommates who get too close. Elias laughed it off, but I saw the hurt in his eyes. I wanted to protect him, to build a world where he'd never feel that again, but I didn't know how. My parents were another hurdle. They didn't know about Elias or about me. I'd always told myself I'd come out when the time was right, but now, with Elias in my life, the clock was ticking. I imagined their disappointment, their questions about my future, and it paralyzed me. Elias sensed it, of course. "You don't have to tell them yet," he said one night, his voice gentle. "But you can't hide forever, Jules." I nodded, but the weight of it lingered. As winter set in, the pressure mounted. Finals were looming, and I was drowning in work. Elias was struggling too. His freelance gigs were drying up, and he was pouring everything into a pitch for an art grant. We were both stretched thin, and the cracks started to show. We'd snap at each other over small things. Dishes, late nights, unspoken fears. One night, after a brutal exam, I came home to find him packing a bag. "Where are you going?" I asked, panic rising. He sighed, running a hand through his curls. "Just to my sister's for a few days. I need space, Jules. We're suffocating each other." I wanted to argue, to beg him to stay, but I saw the exhaustion in his eyes. I let him go, and the apartment felt like a tomb without him. Those days apart were torture. I couldn't study, couldn't sleep. Every corner of the apartment held a memory. His guitar in the corner, the mug he'd left on the counter, the sketch of me still pinned to the fridge. I realized how much I'd taken him for granted, how much I needed him. I'd been so focused on my plans that I hadn't seen what was right in front of me. Elias wasn't just a distraction. He was home. I called him, but he didn't answer. I texted, poured my heart out, but got nothing back. Desperate, I went to his sister's place in Tacoma, standing outside her apartment like a fool in the rain. When he opened the door, he looked tired, guarded. "What are you doing here?" he asked, but I didn't let him finish. I kissed him, hard, right there in the hallway, and said, "I'm done hiding. I love you, Elias, and I'm not letting you go." He stared at me, then pulled me inside, and we talked, really talked, for hours, about my fears, his dreams, the life we wanted together. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. When we went back to Seattle, things were different. We were honest now, no more dancing around the truth. I started opening up to friends about us, and to my surprise, most were supportive. My parents were harder. I called them one night, my hands shaking, and told them everything. They didn't understand, not yet, but they didn't shut me out. It was a start. Elias got the art grant, and I aced my finals, but those victories felt small compared to what we built. One night, we went back to the rooftop, the place where everything had changed. The city sparkled below, and Elias took my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my skin. "We're gonna be okay, right?" he asked, his voice soft but sure. I nodded, pulling him close. "Yeah," I said. "We're gonna be more than okay." Looking back, that night on the roof was the beginning of everything. Elias and I learned to navigate the mess of life together. My career, his art, the world's noise. We fought, we laughed, we grew. I still study too much, and he still leaves paint everywhere. But now, when I look at him, I don't just see that night. I see a future, one I never planned but can't imagine living without. Love doesn't fit neatly into a spreadsheet, and thank God for that. It's messy, unpredictable, and worth every second.